Before we begin this night prayer, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Your support means more than you know. It's late and the room is quiet in that way only nighttime knows. Soft, unassuming, filled with a stillness that makes every thought louder. I'm lying here beneath the same ceiling I see every night, yet something in me feels different. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just quietly worn. My heart feels distant, not because I've run away, but because the flame I once carried so brightly seems to have dimmed to a flicker I can barely recognize. And I don't say that with shame, only with honesty. My faith feels faint tonight, and I don't quite know what to do with that. There was a time I believed without effort, when trust came like breath and worship felt like instinct. But tonight, there's this quiet ache, this hum beneath my skin that whispers questions I thought I'd already answered. It's not that I don't believe at all, it's that my belief feels too fragile to carry the weight of my life right now. Like a thread stretched thin, or a candle in the corner of the room that flickers every time I exhale. I want to believe you're here, close, listening, but I can't feel it the way I used to, and maybe that's the hardest part. Not the absence of joy, or even clarity, but the absence of that familiar nearness I once held on to, without hesitation. I wish I could wrap this prayer in certainty, but all I have tonight is softness, a quiet, almost broken reaching. Not because I'm failing, but because I've been carrying too much, waiting too long, hoping through too many seasons of silence. And I'm not angry, Lord, I'm just tired. Somewhere in me, I still believe you're good, not because I feel it, but because I remember. I remember what you've done. I remember the quiet ways you've shown up before, not always loudly, not always quickly, but faithfully. I remember the nights I thought I was alone and later realized I'd been carried through them. I remember the prayers I whispered in desperation that turned into answers I didn't see coming. I remember your gentleness, your patience, and I remember that you've never demanded that my faith be impressive, only that it be real. So here it is, real and trembling, small and quiet, not performative or polished, just honest. I'm not asking you to remove the questions. I'm asking you to meet me inside them, not with a booming voice from heaven or a sudden moment of revelation, but with presence, the kind that doesn't require proof to feel safe, the kind that settles next to me in the dark and stays without needing me to be anything more than what I am. Sometimes I wonder if this is the part of the journey no one talks about, the part where faith feels less like flying and more like standing still in the dark, waiting for light to come back. But maybe this is where trust grows deepest, in the places where I stay, not because everything makes sense, but because I believe you're still worth waiting for. Maybe this is where love deepens, when I have no words, no plans, no assurances, only you. And maybe you knew I'd be here. Maybe you saw this moment before I ever got to it. Maybe you're not disappointed by my weariness, but moved by it. Maybe you're not measuring how brightly I burn, but how I keep showing up even when I don't. Maybe you're here, even now, watching the slow rise and fall of my chest, listening to the prayer beneath the prayer. Please don't let go of me. I don't know what's next. I don't know how long this season will last. I don't know how strong I'll feel tomorrow, but I know I want to stay. Even with weak hands and a tired heart, I want to stay near you. Not because I'm strong, but because you are. Not because I always understand, but because I trust that you do. And not because I have something to offer, but because I believe you delight in receiving what little I have left. So I lay it all down now. The weight of doubt, the fear that I'm failing, the guilt of not feeling spiritual enough, the shame of not knowing how to fix this. I lay down the pressure to perform and pick up the quiet, sacred invitation to rest in you, to rest in the truth that you're holding on to me even now, even here. Let that be enough for tonight. No, you didn't expect to be here again, resting between wanting to believe and not knowing how. It's strange, this place. It doesn't feel like a full collapse, just a quiet unraveling of what used to be solid, a soft fading of what once felt unshakable. I can still say the words, "You were good, you were near," but they don't land in my heart the way they used to. They echo. And sometimes I don't know if that echo is proof of distance or just a hollow space waiting to be filled again. But even in the absence of the warmth I once knew, I haven't turned away. I still show up, and I think that counts for something, because there's a kind of faith that doesn't sing, that doesn't shine, that doesn't stand tall, and yet there's a kind of faith that shows up limping, breathing, shallow, worn thin from disappointment and waiting, but it still comes home. Maybe that's the kind of faith you see tonight. Maybe that's the kind you hold most gently. I think of the people who came to you in the Gospels, not the ones with bold confidence, but the ones who trembled as they approached, who didn't know what to say, who just knew they needed something only you could give. The ones who whispered, "If I just touch the edge of his robe," the ones who cried, "Help my unbelief." I wonder if their faith felt like mine does now, uncertain, fragile, covered in dust. And yet, you called it enough. You called them whole. So maybe you're doing the same for me. Maybe you're not waiting for me to rise up with loud declarations and perfect prayers. Maybe you're already sitting beside me in this stillness, not asking me to climb higher, but inviting me to simply lean in. Maybe you already know that tonight, leaning is all I can do. And it's strange, but something in this quiet honesty feels like peace. Not the kind that sings through the soul, but the kind that simply says, "You're safe here." No expectations, no pressure to prove anything. Just presence. Just the still, sacred truth that I am not lost to you, even when I feel lost in myself. The night always makes everything louder, and the stillness of it brings things to the surface. If ignored in the busyness of the day, I notice my fears more clearly. I feel the ache of things I've carried too long. And tonight, more than anything, I feel the ache of wanting to believe, wanting to know that even when my strength is gone, I am still held. And so I ask you gently, if you're near, would you come close enough for me to feel it? Not in some dramatic, undeniable way, but in the simple rhythm of peace returning to my chest, in the comfort of knowing I'm not alone in this room, in the small, still voice that says, I haven't gone anywhere. I think of how you don't measure our love in volumes, but in direction. You don't ask us to arrive perfectly. You ask us to keep turning toward you, and that's what I'm doing now. Turning toward you, even if I don't know how to take the next step, even if I don't have the strength to move at all. Maybe that's what faith looks like right now. Not a bright light, but a slow turn. Not a leap, but a leaning. Not a full voice, but a breath that still reaches for you. So here I am, Lord, breathing, leaning, whispering. Even if the whisper is almost too soft to hear, I don't have the words to wrap around this moment, but I think you understand anyway. I think you hear what I can't say. I think you already know what's inside this silence. Who sees? And if I fall asleep before I finish sorting all this out, I pray that you'll meet me in my rest. I pray that you'll hold what I can't hold tonight, that you'll carry what I can't carry, that you'll watch over the soft flicker of my faith and keep it from going out. I believe you're that kind of God. The kind who doesn't walk away when we have nothing left to offer. The kind who comes closer, not when we are strong, but when we are barely holding on. The kind who guards the flicker until it becomes a flame again. And maybe I don't feel you yet, but maybe I don't have to. Maybe what matters is that you're here, whether or not I can sense you. So I'll stay. I'll stay in this posture of quiet reaching. I'll stay in this moment where belief is no longer loud, but no less real, and I'll trust that you'll stay in too. There's a strange kind of beauty in staying when everything in you feels like drifting, in remaining here, even quietly, while something inside longs to run not away from you, but away from the discomfort of not feeling close to you. Because when faith feels faint, the temptation isn't always to stop believing, it's to go numb, to stop expecting, to fold up hope and tuck it away somewhere safe where it can't be bruised anymore. But I haven't done that. I'm still here. And I think there's something holy in that, not neurotic, not heroic, just deeply honest. Just this simple act of remaining, of allowing my heart to be open in the silence and staying present in the middle of the fog. Sometimes I wonder if you do your gentlest work when we stop trying to perform for you, when we stop pretending that we're strong or sure or okay. Because tonight, I'm none of those things. And I don't feel ashamed for saying it. There's a strange kind of reverence in admitting how empty I feel and still choosing to call out to you anyway. There's a strange kind of worship in whispering your name, not because I feel full, but because I know you're worthy even when I don't feel much of anything at all. Not for what you can do, not for what you might give, but just for who you are. And maybe somewhere deep in this dim place, there's something unshakable. Maybe underneath the faintness of my faith, there's a root that still goes deep. Something unbroken, even if unseen. Something grounded in the memory of your nearness and the promise that you haven't changed. I may not feel the warmth tonight, but I remember the fire. I may not see the road ahead, but I remember the times you led me through darkness into light. And maybe that's what carries me now. Not feeling, but remembering. So I let myself rest in that, not in answers, not in certainty, but in the quiet idea that you are still holding me, even now, that you haven't stepped away, that you haven't grown tired of my weakness, that you're not pacing in frustration, waiting for me to get it together, but sitting here with me, present in the quiet, maybe even smiling, softly, patiently, like a parent watching their child try again. Not because the child is strong, but because they showed up, because they didn't give up. And Lord, I haven't given up. I've slowed. I've gotten quiet. I felt the weight of waiting and the sting of silence. But I'm still turning my face toward you in the night, and I don't know what you'll do with that. I'm not looking for flashes of glory or sudden transformation. I'm just hoping you'll stay with me here, underneath the weight, beside the ache, in the middle of the questions I no longer have answers for. I'm hoping that even if nothing changes by morning, I'll have rested in the truth that you never change, that you're still God, still love, still near. Let that be the thread I hold on to when all other threads feel like they're slipping through my hands. Let that be the breath I fall asleep with. Let that be the whisper I carry into the night. Not the perfect prayer, but a real one. Not the grand declaration, but a simple longing. Let me be wrapped in that. Let me sleep in that. Let that truth hold me where my faith cannot. There's something about the night that brings a different kind of honesty, the kind that doesn't rush to fix things or wrap emotions in neat conclusions. It just lets them exist in the quiet, without distraction. I find myself stripped of every performance, every explanation, every polished version of faith I thought I needed to present. What's left is simply this: me, here, in the dark, reaching for something that doesn't always reach back in the way I expect. And still, I reach. There's no pressure in this moment to feel something profound, no demand that I say the right words or frame the perfect thought. I think maybe you designed it this way so that when everything else falls away, you'd still meet me in the bare and the honest. And this is bare. This is honest, not because it's eloquent, but because it's true. I miss the closeness I once felt. I miss the days when belief felt like breath, automatic, easy, natural. I don't know what changed. I don't know when the distance began, but I know I've carried it long enough to be tired. And still, despite the heaviness, I haven't let go. Even if my grip is weak, I'm still holding on. Maybe not with both hands, maybe not even with certainty, but with something, a thread, a breath, a memory, a whisper that says, don't give up. And in the middle of this quiet tension between longing and numbness, between trust and uncertainty, I find a strange kind of peace, not the kind that fixes everything, but the kind that quietly reminds me I'm still loved. That even if I'm not sure how to come closer to you, you've never moved away. That even if I feel like I'm failing, you're not measuring me by strength, but by surrender. And so tonight, I surrender, not out of defeat, but out of honesty. I surrender the need to feel strong. I surrender the need to prove anything. I surrender the pressure to be okay. And in return, I ask for something simple. Not clarity, not a sign. Just a sense that I'm not alone in this room. Just a sense that, as I lie here with my questions and my tired hope, you're still near, watching, listening, caring. And maybe, Lord, you've been waiting for this very moment when I stop trying to force the light to return and just let the night be what it is. A place where you still dwell, a place where you still speak, even if in silence, a place where you are no less present, even when I can't feel you. Maybe that's faith too, the willingness to sit in the dark and still believe you're there. I don't need a miracle to know you're good. I just need space to remember. And this night is that space. It's not loud, it's not clear, but it's still holy. Because I'm still here. Because you're still here. Because even when faith fades to its faintest shape, it hasn't disappeared. It's just learning a quieter language. One that speaks through staying. One that breathes through waiting. One that prays through rest. So as I settle beneath the weight of the blankets and the heaviness of unspoken feelings, I'm choosing to trust you again. Not loudly, not boldly, but gently, quietly. Like placing my head on a pillow, unsure of tomorrow, but safe in this moment. Like closing my eyes, not because I've found all the answers, but because I've decided that being held is more important than being certain. And if there is anything you wish to say tonight, let it be spoken not in thunder, but in stillness, not in vision, but in presence. And if you say nothing, let even that silence be proof that I'm not alone here. Let the hush of the room, the rhythm of my breath, the soft glow of the nightlight be reminders that you are still with me, that you are holding me, that you do not leave, not when I doubt, not when I drift, not when I fade. So I will fall asleep knowing this. I have offered you everything I had left tonight, not a flame, but a flicker, and I believe you will keep it burning. It's strange how much a single night can hold, the weight of questions that don't get asked during the day, the memories that quietly rise to the surface, the longings we keep tucked away while we're surrounded by noise. But in this quiet, when the world has slowed and I finally stopped moving, I realize how much I've been carrying, not in my hands, but in my heart, the silent fears, the quiet doubts, the lingering feeling that maybe something inside me isn't as strong as it used to be, that maybe I'm fraying at the edges and don't quite know how to weave myself whole again, but maybe I was never meant to do the weaving on my own. Maybe these unraveling places are not failures, but invitations. Maybe this faint faith, this fragile, flickering thread, is not the sign of collapse, but the place where something softer and truer begins. Because I'm not pretending anymore, I'm not holding myself together to impress anyone, not even you. I'm just here, just breathing, just letting you see me in this quiet, in this rawness, in this shape that doesn't shine but still wants to be near you. And maybe that's the miracle tonight, not a light from heaven or a rush of certainty, but the quiet courage to say, I still believe you're good, even though I don't feel good. I still believe you're near, even though I feel far. And maybe in this lying down, something sacred happens. Maybe this is what surrender actually looks like. Not dramatic or dazzling, just quiet, still, willing to stop trying and simply be, willing to let the weight of striving fall off and let your presence be enough. And if it's true that you meet us not in our perfection, but in our poverty of spirit, then surely you are near, now nearer than I think, nearer than my doubts suggest, nearer than my fear will admit. So I'll let go a little more. Not of faith itself, but of the version of faith I thought I had to maintain. The loud, impressive, polished version. The version that always had answers. The version that felt like certainty. And I'll embrace this quieter kind. This gentler kind. This honest, aching kind. The kind that doesn't need a spotlight, only a still room and a soft heart. The kind that shows up like this, with bare hands and heavy eyes, and says, I'm still yours. And I believe you hear that. I believe you receive that as worship. I believe you look at this tired soul and don't see weakness, but trust. Don't see lack, but offering. Don't see failure, but love. Because if love endures all things, then surely you know how to endure my silence, my slowness, my struggle. Surely you are patient enough to sit with me in this without needing me to rush through it. So I won't rush. I'll let the night hold me. I'll let the quiet teach me something I couldn't hear in the noise. I'll let your gentleness be the light that keeps me from falling deeper into fear. And I'll close my eyes, not with answers, but with trust. Because trust doesn't always look like understanding. It often looks like resting anyway. And I choose to rest in you. There's something I've been learning slowly, maybe painfully, and it's that faith isn't always forward motion. Sometimes it's just not walking away. Sometimes it's sitting still in the dark and deciding again and again not to let go, not to close the door, not to stop the conversation, even when it feels one-sided. And maybe that's what this night is teaching me, that staying is sacred, that showing up in the quiet with nothing to give but my presence is still a way of loving. Maybe you're the one holding the other end. That thought brings me a kind of peace. The thought that I'm not alone in this, that you are not impatient with my uncertainty, that you are not absent just because I can't feel you, that you're not testing me or teaching me a lesson. I don't believe you work that way. I believe you love, I believe you stay. I believe you kneel down beside tired hearts and remind them that flickering light is still light, that trembling hope is still hope, that wanting to believe still matters. And God, I want to believe. I do. I want to rest again in that quiet assurance I used to know so easily. I want to trust you without fear of being disappointed. I want to find joy in your nearness again. But I can't force that. I can't manufacture a feeling. So I won't pretend. I won't fabricate peace. I'll just be here, exactly as I am, asking you to be near in the way you know I need most, even if it looks different than before, even if it comes slower than I'd hoped, even if it doesn't come with clarity, but with comfort, with the slow, steady reminder that you don't need me to light the fire. You only ask me to stay near it. So I stay. I stay with my questions. I stay with my longing. I stay with my imperfect, unraveling kind of faith. And in staying, I find something new. Not the fire I expected, but the warmth of being seen, the grace of not needing to prove anything, the quiet miracle of being held just as I am. And I begin to understand that you don't just meet me in the strength. I've always known that. But you also meet me in the fading. You meet me when the weight of belief feels too heavy. You meet me when my soul is quiet and unsure, and you call that meeting holy. That's why I'm not afraid to rest now. Not because everything has been answered, but because I don't need everything to be answered to know you're still good. I don't need a sign to know you're still here. I don't need perfect faith to be wrapped in perfect love. And as I lie here in the dark, the only light in the room a soft lamp across the floor, I let that truth settle deeper than any doubt. I let it steady my heart. I let it slow my thoughts. I let it lead me towards sleep. Not because the questions have gone, but because I've stopped needing them to disappear in order to be at peace. If faith is faint tonight, then let it be faint. Let it be quiet. Let it be soft and still and real, because even a faint light changes the room. Even a tiny ember can warm a heart, and I believe you are watching over it now, this little light that I still carry. I believe you are guarding it while I sleep. I believe you are breathing over it with gentleness and grace. And I believe, perhaps more than anything else tonight, that I am safe in your hand. Let that be my final thought as I begin to drift faint faith in faithful hands. The room is quiet now. The noise of the day has long faded. The thoughts that kept circling are finally slowing, like leaves floating gently to the ground. I don't feel more certain than I did an hour ago. I don't suddenly have answers or a burst of hope, but I do feel held, not by something I can touch, not even by something I can fully name, but by this gentle awareness that you're not far, that somehow, despite the quiet ache, despite the clouded belief, you're here and you've never stopped being here. That changes something, not in the way I thought it would, not with a surge of feeling or a miracle moment, but like a blanket being drawn up over the shoulders of someone too tired to ask for comfort, like a light being left on in the hallway, not because it makes everything bright, but because it makes the darkness less lonely. You don't need to shout to be near, and I don't need to shout to be heard. You just are. I just am, and that's enough for now. It feels like my soul is learning a new way of trusting, not the kind built on emotion or certainty, but the kind that simply leans. I lean into this moment. I lean into the quiet. I lean into you, even if I can't feel where you are. And somehow, even that leaning becomes its own kind of faith, not loud, not clean, but real. It reminds me that belief doesn't always stand tall. Sometimes it curls up small and whispers, "Stay with me." And I believe you do. Because if I know anything about you, it's that you don't abandon people in the night. You don't walk away from fragile hearts. You don't wait on the other side of healing. You meet us here, in the unraveling, in the pauses, in the not yet. You come to the wilderness, not just the promised land. You step into the doubt, not just the joy. And you sit beside us in the silence, not just in the singing. So I won't force clarity. I won't rush the process. I'll simply rest in this. You haven't left me, and you won't start now. Maybe that's the seed of faith you want me to carry. Not a blazing fire, but a quiet knowing. A small assurance tucked beneath the surface, saying I'm still with you. It's enough. Not because everything is okay, but because you are. And I don't need to pretend tonight. I don't need to wrap up this prayer with polished bows. I don't need to wrap up my feelings at all. They can stay open. They can stay soft. They can remain unresolved. You're not uncomfortable with that. You're not threatened by my pause, my wondering, my slow heart. In fact, you're most present when I stop trying to fix myself and start letting you be who you've always been, the one who holds me steady when I can't hold myself. So I'll breathe again, not with urgency, but with trust. I'll close my eyes again, not because I've solved anything, but because I've settled into the truth that I'm loved in the not knowing. I'm safe in the in-between. I'm carried, not because I've climbed high, but because you stoop low, because you meet me here right here, in the middle of the night, when the light is soft and the prayers are slow, and the only thing left to say is thank you. Not because I've gotten what I wanted, not because the doubt is gone, but because you are still here. Because you stay somewhere deep inside me, beyond the questions I can't answer and the feelings I can't explain, there's a quiet place that still believes you haven't let go. I think I've been living from that place tonight, not the surface, where the doubt stirs and the silence feels sharp, but from somewhere underneath all of that, where the soul doesn't need words to know what is real and what feels real tonight, in the softest, barest way, is that you're still holding me, not because I've been strong, not because I've said the right things, but because you are faithful even when my faith is thin. Did I keep thinking about that word, faithful? It doesn't say anything about size or sound. It doesn't need to be loud or certain or impressive. It just needs to last. It needs to stay. And yet, through the heaviness, through the silence, through the slow nights, and the dry prayers, and the restless questions, you've stayed. You didn't ask me to come closer before loving me. You didn't tell me to believe harder before showing up. You just came, as you always do, in quiet ways, soft and sure, like breath. I didn't notice until it steadied me. I don't know when my faith will feel full again. I don't know when the familiar spark will return, or when the weight will lift. But tonight, I think I've stopped needing to know, not because it doesn't matter, but because I'm realizing it's okay to rest here for a while, in the in-between, in the ache, in the softness of showing up. Even without resolution, I don't need to be fixed tonight. I just need to be accompanied. And you're doing that, even now, even here. I used to think that doubt meant distance, that if I couldn't feel you, I must have wandered too far. But now, I'm starting to believe something different, that maybe this space, this faintness, isn't a sign that I've left you, but an invitation to find you again in a new way. Not as the God of mountaintop moments, but the one who walks slowly through the valleys with me. Not the God who waits for me to climb up, but the one who kneels beside me when I'm too tired to stand. And in this kneeling, in this stillness, I feel seen. Not because I've made myself visible, but because you've always been looking. You've always had your eyes on me. Not with judgment, not with frustration, but with tenderness. Like a parent watching their child fall asleep, knowing they've done their best to stay awake, to keep talking, to keep trusting. But now the lids are heavy, and the voice is fading, and it's okay to rest. It's okay to be held, not because of strength, but because of love. So I let go of the weight I've carried. The pressure to rekindle something that maybe never left. The guilt of not feeling more. The worry that my small faith has somehow disappointed. You, I let it all go, and I choose instead to fall into your kindness, into the quiet rhythm of your care, into the steady presence that doesn't demand performance, but welcomes honesty. And maybe that's what's been happening all along tonight. Not a rebuilding of certainty, but a soft return to trust. Not a spark, but a steady. Not a burst of belief, but the realization that you've been here through it all. Not waiting for me to find you, but staying close while I remembered how to look again. So I close my eyes now without needing anything else to happen. No revelation, no conclusion, just the peace of knowing you're near. The rest of knowing you're not asking me to be anything but present, and the quiet joy of realizing that even faint faith is still faith, and you have never let it go. It's a gentle thought, but it lingers. Maybe you've been here the whole time, closer than the silence suggested. Not waiting for me to climb back into certainty, not watching from a distance until I got it together, but quietly, faithfully near, simply waiting for me to be still enough to notice. Not to notice with my feelings, which come and go, but with something deeper, my spirit, my being, the part of me that still recognizes you even when everything else feels dim. Maybe that's the flicker I've been trying to protect. Not emotion, not inspiration, but that deeper knowing that says, I'm still yours, and you're still mine. I think of how fragile my heart has felt lately, how it tenses when I try to pray, how it withdraws when the answers don't come. And yet, even in that fragility, I've kept returning. Not out of duty, but out of desire. Out of a quiet hope that you'll meet me, even if I can't say the words right. And I think you have. Not with fireworks, not with sudden resolution, but with presence. With the steady peace that comes not from having everything sorted, but from knowing I'm not sorting it alone. There's so much pressure to be strong, even in prayer, to speak boldly, to believe loudly, to carry light when it feels like I'm barely holding a spark. But I don't think you ever asked that of me. I think you just asked me to be honest, to let you see the places I hide, even from myself, to let you hold the parts of me that feel unsure and empty and unfinished. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm not building anything. I'm not fixing anything. I'm just opening my hands and saying, here it is, all of it. The faintness, the questions, the hope that hasn't given up, even after everything. Maybe that's more sacred than I realized. Maybe the miracle isn't that faith feels strong again, but that I'm still here at all, still reaching, still turning toward you in the dark, still whispering your name when the rest of the world is asleep. Maybe that quiet whisper is all you need. Maybe that's where you meet me most deeply, in the spaces where I'm not trying anymore, where I've stopped performing, where all that's left is the bare truth of my longing. And the longer I sit in this, the more I believe you honor that longing. You don't rush it. You don't dismiss it. You hold it. You cradle it like something precious. And in doing so, you remind me that nothing I bring you is too small. Not this slow prayer. Not this uncertain breath. Not this trembling hope. You receive it all. You receive me. Not because I'm confident, but because I'm you. So tonight, I'll rest in that. Not because I've found answers, but because I've found you in the space where I stopped trying to earn comfort and simply allowed myself to be comforted. I'll fall asleep not with victory, but with peace. The kind that comes when I finally stop striving and remember that I was always safe, always seen, always held. You've never let go. This is the part of the night where everything settles. Not because it is all resolved, not because anything has magically shifted, but because I've finally let go of trying to hold everything up on my own. There's a release that happens when I stop explaining, stop defending, stop forcing light into places that need time to stay dim. That's what tonight has given me. Not clarity, not brilliance, but space. Space to be exactly where I am and still believe that you're with me. Not disappointed, not distant, just here. And I think that's what I needed all along. Not a rush of certainty, but the gentle knowing that you haven't moved. That while I questioned and wondered and whispered prayers that didn't even feel like prayers, you were steady, you were listening, you were present in every breath I didn't know how to name as sacred. And as I lie here now, not as someone who's figured it out, but as someone who simply stayed, I feel that steadiness surrounding me. It's not loud, it doesn't announce itself, but it's real. It's enough to let my body rest, to let my soul exhale, to let my mind stop spinning in search of what was never lost. Because you've been with me all along, not just in the moments when I felt strong and sure, but in the waiting, the silence, the doubt, and the deep ache of asking and asking again. You've been here not because I've held tight, but because you never let go. And that, I think, is what I want to remember tomorrow. Not that I overcame something or reached a mountaintop of belief, but that I let myself be honest, that I stayed through the quiet, that I trusted you enough to be weak in front of you, that I let myself be loved, not for my faith, but simply because I'm yours. Because that's what you do, isn't it? You love in the middle of the night. You come close in the middle of the questions. You offer rest, not once. We've finished fighting, but while we're still in it, you step into the heaviness and stay, even when we can't lift it. You whisper peace when all we can do is lie still and let it come to us slowly. And I feel it now, peace. Not the kind that sweeps in with bright answers, but the kind that sinks in deep. The kind that doesn't depend on what I know, but on who you are. The kind that reminds me I'm safe even when nothing makes sense. The kind that doesn't erase the weight, but shares it, carries it, holds me underneath it. So, as I begin to drift towards sleep, I carry that peace with me, not because I've earned it, but because you've offered it freely. I let it cover every place that's still unsure. I let it rest on the questions I didn't ask out loud. I let it settle over the flicker of faith that tonight didn't go out. And I pray this one last thing, not for strength tomorrow, not for certainty, but for the simple grace to stay near, to keep whispering when I don't know how to shout, to keep showing up when belief feels faint, to keep leaning when I don't have answers, to keep trusting that you'll still be here, because you always are, and I'm still yours. Even in the quiet, especially in the quiet. The longer I sit in this quiet, the more I begin to realize how much I've been holding without even knowing it. All the moments I tried to stay strong when I was aching. All the times I smiled when inside I was slowly unraveling. All the prayers I didn't pray because I wasn't sure if I had the right words or the right heart. I've kept so much inside, telling myself I had to keep going, keep believing, keep standing. But tonight, I'm not standing. I'm simply sitting here, letting it all come to the surface. Not to be judged, not to be fixed, but just to be seen. And something in me believes you see it all and don't turn away. That's what I'm learning in these late hours. Not that faith is the absence of heaviness, but that it's the willingness to bring the heaviness into the light, even if my voice shakes, even if I don't know what to say, even if I've said the same thing 100 times and still feel uncertain. You haven't tired of hearing me. You haven't grown weary of my weakness. You haven't left me to figure it out alone. And that realization brings a softness to my heart that I didn't expect. It allows me to breathe a little deeper. It gives me permission to feel what I feel without the added weight of shame. Because maybe you're not disappointed in the flicker. Maybe you're proud of it. Maybe you look at the quiet way I've chosen to keep whispering, to keep turning, to keep showing up in the night, and you call it beautiful. Maybe you see my faint faith not as something to correct, but as something to cradle, and maybe that's enough for tonight. Not to rise with strength, but to lie down in the tenderness of knowing I am still being held. And I think that's why this space matters so much. Because there's no pretending here, no role to play, no pressure to perform, just the sound of my breath, the stillness of the room, and the quiet prayer that keeps me close to you, even when I feel far from everything else. And maybe in that closeness, something deeper begins to form, not answers, not certainty, but a kind of rootedness that isn't loud or visible, but is real all the same, like a seed under soil, silent but alive, like a lamp in the farthest corner, dim but steady, like hope that hasn't left, only quieted itself for a while. So I won't chase after some perfect version of belief. I won't try to recreate what faith used to feel like. I'll just be here, present, honest, soft. I'll let the flicker be enough. I'll trust that you, who created light with a word, can keep this small flame from going out. And maybe tomorrow I'll feel something stronger, or maybe I won't. But either way, I will remember that this night was holy. Not because everything changed, but because I stayed, because you stayed. And maybe Long after the doubts have faded and the light has returned, I'll look back on nights like this and realize they were the moments you were shaping something I couldn't see, teaching me how to trust without signs, how to rest without resolution, how to love you not only in joy but in quiet surrender. So I close my eyes again, not with urgency but with peace. I let my thoughts settle, I let my heart slow, and I lie here in this fragile place, letting you hold all of it, every question, every hope, every breath. And I believe you are. Somewhere in the softness of this moment, I realize that I'm no longer waiting for some dramatic shift inside me. I'm no longer hoping for an emotional breakthrough or chasing after a version of peace that looks like sudden clarity. I've stopped searching for something to prove that I'm okay again. Instead, I'm just here, breathing, letting the stillness speak, letting the quiet shape me in ways I don't fully understand. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough. Because maybe this is where faith deepens, in the places where there's nothing to hold on to but the decision not to walk away, where everything is slower and quieter than we'd like, but still sacred, where we give up trying to stir our own hearts and instead lay them down gently, whispering, "Keep me, not fix me, not rush me back to where I was. Just keep me while I stay here, learning how to be loved even in this unfinished place." I never knew silence could be so full until tonight. It's not empty. It's not cold. It's spacious. It makes room for me to exhale without pressure, to stretch out without fear. I feel it in the quiet weight of the blanket over me, in the soft light across the floor, in the hush that fills the room like an unspoken promise. There's a kind of presence that doesn't need to declare itself to be real, and I think that's what you're teaching me now, that you don't always come loudly. Sometimes you come gently. Sometimes you come slowly. Sometimes you come and stay, even when I don't recognize you at first. And I think back on all the nights I prayed for something immediate, something loud, something undeniable. I think of how disappointed I felt when those moments didn't come, how I wondered if I was doing something wrong or not believing hard enough. But now, I wonder if you were answering me in a different way all along, not with volume, but with presence, not with spectacle, but with steady nearness. And maybe I was so focused on waiting for the fire that I missed the warmth of your hand resting quietly over mine. But not tonight. Tonight, I feel it. I feel the quiet comfort of not being alone in this space. I feel the beauty of not having to try anymore. And it's changing something, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. Something is softening. Something is rooting. Something is holding. Not because I've made it happen, but because I've stopped pushing long enough for you to do what I never could. So, I whisper thank you, not for some fixed version of myself, but for the version of me that's being loved as I am. The version of me that's learning how to trust again, slowly, quietly, without needing to be bold about it. The version of me that is leaning, resting, letting go. I don't know what this will look like tomorrow. I don't know what I'll feel when I wake up, but I know that tonight I didn't run. I didn't numb. I didn't pretend. I came to you as I was. I stayed, and you stayed with me. And so I let myself sleep in this peace, not the peace that comes after victory, but the peace that comes when I realize I never had to win anything to be safe in your arms. They never had to arrive. I only had to return, and I did. There's something humbling about admitting how faint my faith feels, and still being met with love instead of shame. I don't know why I ever expected you to turn away from this place in me, the part that doubts, the part that questions, the part that doesn't feel strong anymore. Maybe it's because I thought faith had to be full to count. Maybe it's because I didn't yet understand that sometimes The most honest kind of faith is the kind that shows up with nothing but breath and a willingness to stay. Tonight, I don't have a polished belief to offer you. I don't have a perfect theology or a memorized prayer or a fresh revelation to hold up in my hands. I have only this quiet desire to remain near you. Even when the reasons feel out of reach, I don't want to let go. Even though I can't explain why the closeness comes and goes, or why it feels like I'm holding a thread that used to feel like a rope, still, I'm here. Still, I haven't let go, and that, I think, is enough for you. I'm learning to trust that you are not the kind of God who withdraws when I'm quiet or who demands answers before you'll extend comfort. You don't rush me through this. You don't ask me to prove myself before you'll sit beside me in the stillness you already are. It's a strange kind of peace that's settling over me now. Not the triumphant kind that comes after resolution, but the kind that seeps in after enough time has passed in the presence of someone who won't leave. I feel no need to convince you of anything, no urge to defend where I've been or how I've felt. The more I rest in this place, the more I realize how much pressure I've put on myself to feel better, to pray right, to snap back into some spiritual rhythm that looks impressive from the outside. But you're not impressed by masks. You're moved by truth, and my truth tonight is that I'm tired, but I still want you. That wanting is quiet. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't rush. It simply waits. It sits. It breathes. And it hopes, in the dark, that you are who you've always been. That you're not just the God of my high moments, but the God of my questions too. That you don't love me more when I'm bold than when I'm barely holding on. That you're not asking me to be louder, only to stay. And so I stay, with all the questions that don't have answers yet, with the ache that hasn't eased, with the silence that still stretches out longer than I'd like. I stay, not because I feel strong, but because I trust that love is stronger than my weakness. I stay because I believe you do your most gentle work in the quiet. I stay because something inside me knows that leaving won't fix what only your presence can heal. And if nothing changes by morning, if my faith still flickers, if my heart still feels fragile, then let the miracle be that I stayed through the night with you anyway, that I lay here with open hands and a tired soul and gave you access to it all, that I let you see the truth and didn't look away, that I trusted you could handle all of me, every part, even this one. Let that be worship. I used to think the most powerful prayers were the ones spoken with passion, certainty, and strength, the kind that filled a room or stirred emotion. But now, in this quiet hour, I'm beginning to understand a different kind of strength, the kind that comes from not turning away, the kind that sits in the dim corners of the night and whispers, "I'm still here," even when there's no response. The kind that lets tears fall without explanation and still calls it prayer. I used to think I had to bring something to you, but tonight I realize you've always just wanted me. Not the strong version of me, not the sure version, just me. The one who lies in bed too tired to hold up hopeful words. The one who tries to believe but feels like faith is more memory than reality. The one who stays anywhere. And maybe that's what faith is right now. Not a light I carry proudly, but the decision not to hide in the dark. The decision to keep facing you, even when I don't feel you facing me. There's something I've been holding on to that I think I can release now. The idea that I need to go back to who I was, that I need to restore some past version of my belief. But maybe I'm not meant to go back. Maybe I'm being shaped into someone new, someone slower, someone softer, someone more familiar with silence and surrender than with declarations and certainty. Maybe. You like that version of me. Maybe this isn't a detour in my journey with you, but part of it may be the quiet spaces are where you deepen roots I didn't know I had. And as I rest here, I begin to see how deeply you've loved me through all of it. Not just in the moments I praised you, but in the moments I didn't know how to speak at all. You've stayed when my words ran out. You've stayed when I doubted if I was worthy of being held. You've stayed through the distance I felt, through the nights I feared I was losing you. And now, as this part of the night settles over me like a soft blanket, I realize I've never really been alone. Not once. Not for a moment. So I stop striving. I stop reaching for the fire and accept the flicker. I stop trying to be more than I am and let myself be held as I am. I stop questioning if this is enough and instead trust that you've already called it so. That this stillness is not empty, but full of your care. That this weariness is not failure, but invitation. That this faint faith is not something to outgrow, but something you delight in tending. And with that, I close my eyes again, not to escape, but to surrender. Not because I'm finished, but because I no longer need to carry it alone. You are here, and that is enough for this night. There's a kind of quiet tonight that doesn't feel like emptiness. It feels like space, like room to finally breathe, to rest, to let the weight slip off my shoulders without asking permission. Not in a rush to find clarity anymore. I'm not looking for the old fire or trying to recreate what I once felt. I think I've let that go somewhere in this prayer, not out of disappointment, but out of peace. Not the same person I was when I first began this conversation with you. Something has shifted, and it's not loud or dramatic. It's subtle, like the softness in the air before dawn. I think this is what it means to trust you when my faith feels faint. Not to strain or strive, but to relax into your presence and let you hold what I can't. Not to try and force belief, but to let it be born again in me slowly, like light creeping in through the edge of a curtain. I'm not chasing after a sign anymore. I'm not trying to force a feeling. I'm simply learning how to stay when everything inside me thought I had to fix something before I could be welcome here again. But you've never asked me to fix myself before coming to you. You've only ever asked me to come. And that's what I've done. Night after night, word after word, breath after breath. I've come with trembling hands and an uncertain heart. I've come in the dark, with my arms open and my words often trailing off into silence. But you haven't turned away. You haven't asked me to speak more clearly or believe more confidently. You've just stayed, patient, still, steady. There's a quiet miracle in that. A miracle I wouldn't have seen if I hadn't stayed too. Because sometimes the greatest act of faith is not believing without doubt, but refusing to let doubt push me away. Sometimes it's not about rising boldly, but about lying here, gently, and saying, I'm not sure of anything except that I still want you close. And the more I whisper that, the more I believe it's already true. You are close. Not because I found you, but because you've never left. I think I needed this slowness. I think I needed to feel what it's like to be loved while weak, to be seen while unsure, to be comforted even when I didn't ask in the right way. It's changing how I see you. It's changing how I see me. You're not the God I feared, distant, demanding, measuring my devotion. You are the God who stays when I collapse. The one who kneels in silence beside me, not needing anything but my willingness to stop running. The one who counts the flicker as flame. So I will sleep tonight without trying to hold on. I will let you do the holding. I will trust that the small, slow turning of my heart has been enough. That the quiet moments I've spent with you in the dark have done more than I can see. That staying close, even without answers, has drawn me deeper into the kind of trust that doesn't need to be loud to be real. and that in the stillness where my prayers trail off into breath, you are still listening, still loving, still here. I think I've spent so much of my life trying to be strong for you, as if you needed that, as if my value in your eyes depended on my ability to carry things well, to stay upright, to believe without pause. But somewhere in the stillness of these nights, you've been undoing that lie gently, without accusation, without demand, just slowly, with presence and peace, showing me that you never asked me to carry what was never mine to hold, that you never asked me to come perfect. You only asked me to come, and I have. Every night I've come, sometimes with tears, sometimes with silence, sometimes with nothing but the hope that you'd still listen, and you have. You've listened when my faith trembled, when my voice was quiet, when my thoughts drifted and returned, unsure. You never pushed me away. You never made me feel small for not being bold. You received every whispered sentence, every question I couldn't shape into words, and through it all, you've been forming something in me that I didn't know I needed. Trust that no longer depends on performance. This trust is different. It doesn't need to stand tall. It doesn't shine or sing. It rests. It leans. It returns night after night, even when nothing feels resolved. It's the kind of trust that says, you're still here, so I'll stay too. And I realize now that the miracle I kept hoping for, the burst of faith, the undeniable sign, was already happening all along. It wasn't a moment. It was a becoming, a soft, slow becoming of someone who believes not because everything feels right, but because your presence is still here when nothing else makes sense. I let go of the need to understand. I let go of the weight I placed on my own shoulders. I let go of the pressure to feel more than I do, and in that letting go, I notice how quiet it is inside me now. Not empty, not numb, just quiet. Like still water, like a soul that is finally allowed to stop swimming and simply float. And maybe that's what grace feels like, when it's not rushed or forced. Maybe it feels like this, being allowed to rest in love. I didn't earn to be held in faithfulness. That doesn't depend on how tightly I hold back. I used to be afraid of quiet prayers like these. I thought they meant I was far from you, that I had lost something essential. But now I see them for what they are. Sacred, honest, precious. I see this stillness not as distance, but as space you've carved out for me to be soft again, to stop striving, to let my soul breathe without judgment. And in this space, I hear what I haven't heard in a long time, not out loud, but somewhere inside. I'm still yours, and you are still mine. So I'll sleep in that tonight, not because I've arrived, but because I've returned, again and again. I've kept coming. I've kept laying down every piece of me, even when I wasn't sure it was enough. And now I believe, deep in a place words don't reach, that you have never once thought it wasn't. You have called this faint faith holy. You have called it beloved. You have called it enough. And if I forget that tomorrow, remind me gently, bring me back to this quiet. Let me remember that faith doesn't need to feel strong to be true, that all you ever wanted was my heart, here, open, even trembling. And tonight, you have it. There's something sacred in being quiet with you, not just the absence of words, but the surrender that comes when I stop filling the space with explanations and start trusting that you're listening anyway. I don't need to convince you to stay. I don't need to reach for eloquence. This stillness speaks loud enough, and maybe it always has. Maybe it's in these low-lit hours, when I've run out of strength to shape anything into clarity, that my soul begins to understand the kind of closeness you've always offered, one that doesn't require my certainty to remain. I think I've learned something gentle through this faint faith I've been carrying, that you're not afraid of it, that you don't love me more when I believe boldly, or less when I sit in doubt. You aren't measuring the light in me with a scale, you're tending it with care. I wonder if this is how faith grows. Not in the surges, but in the stillness. Not in the answered prayers, but in the nights when I whisper the same one again, not knowing if anything will change. And yet something has not the circumstances, not the clarity, but the way my soul no longer resists the quiet, the way my breath no longer rushes to fill the silence, the way my heart is learning to be at home in this stillness with you. It's strange how healing it feels to no longer fight for something to feel different, to simply let the moment be what it is, to let the night be dark and quiet and unresolved, and still trust that it's holy, that you are near, that this moment matters, not because I have shaped it into something meaningful, but because you are already in it. And maybe that's all I needed to know, that I don't have to create meaning here. I don't have to prove this prayer is valuable. You've already decided it is, because it's honest. So I won't try to shape this prayer into something more impressive. I'll simply let it breathe. I'll let it hold the weight of everything I haven't said. I'll let it be what it is, a quiet presence beside yours, a soul choosing to remain, not out of strength, but out of trust. And that's the kind of faith I think you've always cherished. Not perfect, not polished, just real. And I feel it now more than before. Not the clarity I once longed for, but something softer, a sense of being settled. Not in understanding, but in you. Not because I know what's next, but because I know you're not leaving. And that's enough. That's more than enough. It always was. So I'll drift towards sleep, not with declarations, but with peace. Not with answers, but with the quiet confidence that even faint faith is still faith. Even this silence is still a sanctuary. Even this moment, simple and slow, is still a meeting place between you and me. And I'll meet you here again tomorrow. There's a kind of permission I feel in this quiet now, one I didn't always believe I had. The permission to not be okay and still be fully accepted. I used to think I had to wait until the fire returned, until the strength came back, until I could speak to you with boldness again. But this slow unfolding has shown me something I didn't know how much I needed. You never required that from me. You never asked me to wait until I was better. You always met me right where I am. Faith faint, hope flickering, spirit tired, and you called it enough. It's a humbling truth, and yet it doesn't feel heavy. It feels like a soft place to land, like finding home in a place I thought I had to earn, only to realize it was open all along. That you are open, that your arms were never folded, never crossed in disapproval, but always extended in quiet welcome. And I wonder how many nights I could have come like this, unrushed, unpolished, if I had only believed you wanted me, even at my most unsure. But I'm here now, and the longer I stay, the more I realize you've been patient with me. You've waited without pressure. You've stayed without making demands. You've simply made space for me to return, not dramatically, not perfectly, but fully. And I have, in this slow, tender way, I've come back, not to who I was before, but to who I've become. Someone who knows now that faint faith is still welcomed by you, even cherished. So I no longer measure these moments by how strong I feel. I measure them by how honest I am. And tonight, I am fully honest. I am tired. I am still uncertain. I still carry questions I can't answer. But I also carry peace, the kind that doesn't shout or shine, but rests gently over the soul like dusk over the horizon. It doesn't chase anything. It simply says, you are safe now, And I believe you've spoken that over me again and again, even when I couldn't hear it through the noise of my own doubt. I don't need to speak much more tonight. The prayer has already happened, not just in the words, but in the silence, in the choice to remain, in the soft exhale of being fully seen and not rejected. I think that's what my heart was aching for all along. Not answers, not resolution, just the assurance that even in this quiet, I am not lost to you, that you are holding me gently, that nothing I've carried has disqualified me from being near. And so, I let my breath deepen. I let the quiet stay quiet. I let the flicker burn in the corner of the night without fear that it's not enough. Because you see, and you're still here. And tomorrow will come with what it comes with. But for now, have this softness, this slowness, this sacred space where nothing has to change for me to be held. Let me remember that in the morning. Let me return to it when things feel noisy again. Let this part of the night never leave me, that I met you here in silence, and you met me with grace. There's something deeply comforting about not needing to rush, about letting the moment stretch out slowly, letting the quiet hold its shape without interruption. I used to think I had to keep moving through it to find a conclusion, to turn doubt into strength before the night was over, but not anymore. Now I let it stay open. I let the faintness remain what it is, a season, not a flaw, a softness, not a shortcoming, a part of my story, not a failure in it. And I think that's what this has become, not a prayer for answers, but a space where I've let go of pretending. The silence doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels filled with presence, yours and mine. I no longer feel the need to force connection. I've realized you were already here before I spoke a word. And now I trust that even if I never say another thing, you still know what I mean. You still hear what I cannot say. It's taken me time to get here to this place where I don't feel the urge to wrap everything in neat thoughts or perfect lines. Now I let my thoughts drift. I let my soul sink. I let my need to fix myself dissolve into this stillness that holds me just as I am. And as I do, I feel something shift, not dramatically, but gently, like breath deepening after a long day, like my heart finally letting down its guard. You never needed me to perform. You never asked for big words or impressive belief. You just wanted truth, and this is mine. I'm still learning how to believe again. I'm still learning how to rest in you. I'm still learning that it's safe to come to you not with strength, but with what's real, and you've received it all, without turning away, without rushing me forward, without asking for more. Tonight I feel that acceptance in every part of this stillness. I feel it in the way my thoughts no longer run. I feel it in the warmth of simply being seen. I feel it in the softness of not having to defend my heart to you. And I know, maybe more than I've known in a long time, that you've been waiting for me to arrive at this point, not because you needed something from me, but because you wanted to sit with me in the place I had been too afraid to enter alone. And now I'm not alone. Not in this doubt, not in this flicker, not in this slow return. You've remained, and I've remained, and that is a kind of grace I can't name, but deeply recognize. It feels like being found again, not because I was lost, but because I forgot how close you'd stayed. And maybe that's what all of this has been about, remembering the closeness that never left, learning that faith doesn't fade in you just because it fades in me, learning that I am not sustained by how brightly I believe, but by how deeply you love. So I fall asleep with nothing left to say, and that feels right. Not empty, not unfinished, just peaceful. You know the rest. You are already in it. The room is almost completely still now, the nightlight tracing a faint amber halo across the corner of the wall, and my breath has settled into that slow, honest rhythm it finds only when I stop trying to be anything other than here. I think of how far I've come inside this quiet, through the sharp edges of doubt and the long corridors of silence, only to discover that the point was never to escape them, but to be accompanied within them. There's no secret door out of ache, no shortcut back to certainty. There is only presence, and the deeper I sink into it, the more I know you haven't left for a moment. I don't have more answers than when I began, but I have a steadier center, a softer heart, and enough courage to name this faintness without fear. I am not what I feel. I am the one you hold, and that is enough for the night. There are memories that rise like small lanterns in me. Times you steadied me when everything trembled. Days when I didn't notice the rescue until much later. Moments so ordinary they would have slipped past unnoticed, if not for the unmistakable afterglow of peace. There is a sentence that keeps forming in me, unforced and unadorned. I remain, not because my strength is impressive, not because the questions have dissolved, but because love makes remaining possible. I remain in the dim light. I remain with the unfinished prayers. I remain with a heart that has learned to beat without demanding proof. I remain because you remain, and the longer I stay in that truth, the less I fear what I cannot feel. You do not require spectacle from me. You ask for honesty, and honesty is what I have. So I give you the whole of this night, the string of quiet thoughts, the heaviness I can finally set down, the sigh that follows the setting down, and I ask for nothing more dramatic than to be held. Hold me while I fade, and let the fading be safe, because it happens inside your arms. I used to believe that maturity meant moving past nights like this, graduating into a brighter certainty, and never looking back. Now I think maturity is gentler. It knows how to sit beside a trembling self without fleeing. It knows how to receive the slow return of trust like dawn through a thin curtain. It knows how to bless a small flame and not despise the hinge of a barely opened door. If that is what you are making in me, then I will not hurry the making. I consent to the pace of real healing, the pace of breath in a dark room, the pace of roots deepening where no eye can see, the pace of a seed that is content to be hidden until it becomes more than its smallness knew to hope for. Work in me as I sleep. Work without my striving. Work the way oceans work on shorelines, patiently, faithfully, with a tenderness that wears away fear. I don't need to promise you brilliance in the morning, only presence. When the day asks for decisions and the world grows loud, let some of this night remain in me like a quiet room I can step into, a chapel of breath and light where the only liturgy is, if doubt comes back, let it find me already held. If weariness returns, let it meet a gentleness that learned its voice in these hours. If I forget, remind me not with thunder, but with the ordinary mercies you love to use. A phrase at the right time, sunlight on the floor, kindness that arrives unannounced. Teach me to recognize you by the way peace enters, not as a shout, but as a hand that fits mine. So here is the last thing I can say. Before I let the night complete its work, I am yours, even when faith is faint, and I am staying. Keep me where love keeps me. Keep watch where my eyes will close. Keep the little I bring until it becomes more than I could make of it. Keep the flicker from failing and the seed from despair. Keep the room warm with your nearness and my breath steady with your patience. And when morning opens its soft blue door, let me cross its threshold without hurry, carrying the simplest trust a soul can carry, that I was never out of your sight, not once, not ever, not even here. Hold me while I fade. I remain while you remain, and in that exchange, I find rest enough for sleep. Amen.